We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and wow, that was one for the ages. Joseph R. Biden, President of the United States of America, the man who believes he's the only one who can beat Donald Trump, had one job, which was to sound semi-coherent throughout the course of this debate, and he completely failed. I mean, Biden, when he was talking in this debate, was a disaster, which, you know, we're not surprised by. But even when he wasn't speaking, the split screens where you could see his face, how tired and old and kind of out of it he looked throughout the whole course of it, were also disastrous. And the crazy thing is that CNN essentially tried to rig the rules of this debate in tandem with the Biden campaign to make him look as good as possible. And the changes that they made to this particular format did not aid the President of the United States. They ended up helping Trump, because Trump's biggest mistake in the original 2020 debate versus Joe Biden was not letting him speak, running over him the whole time. And it turns out letting the guy who can't speak attempt to talk is the winning strategy. Now, we're going to get into this. I'm going to show you the key moments where Biden flopped on his face absolutely stunningly. We're also going to talk about Trump's performance in this debate. But before we do, thank you to everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Look, I've said repeatedly, time and time again, that everybody who thinks automatically the evil orange man is going to win the presidential election of 2024 is just wrong. Joe Biden is actually a stronger candidate than you believe. There's a reason why he's allocating money in the way that he is, so that he could shore up swing state votes. But the polls are the polls, and they don't look good for Joe Biden, especially in the key swing states, and this did nothing to improve his prospects. In fact, the only saving grace for Joe Biden in this particular debate is that it happened in June, well before the conventions, Republican or Democrat. So hopefully, if you're Biden, people will forget about this by the time the election rolls around. And remember, they're only doing 2 debates this year instead of the standard 3 debates. So this, again, might cater to Joe Biden. He might have a little bit of a lifeline in that people don't have to remember this, or likely won't remember this, when it comes to election day. But in terms of performance, like I said in the open, it was awful. It was awful in every respect. And I've never once bought into the theory that they're going to replace Joe Biden as the candidate. And the reason why I never bought into that is because Joe Biden's ego is too strong for him to be replaced by anyone else. Plus, there's no one really up to replace him. But geez, this was not good. This was horrible. And he fumbled basic, easy questions that should have been advantage him.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
So this debate was basically over in 10 minutes. It was very unlikely Joe Biden was going to recover from the moment he started talking, but this question right here was the best puncher's chance that Joe Biden had, because despite the fact that a lot of people in the conservative movement, the overwhelming majority of them are in fact pro-life, I have a ton of pro-lifers in my audience, the fact of the matter is abortion is a losing issue for the Republican Party, and they asked Trump this question. There's a reason they focused focused on it, and that is because this is what drove the underwhelming performance of Republicans in the 2022 congressional races. And Trump, by the way, did not give the best answer to this question. I'm going to play a little bit of that, and then we're going to see what Joe Biden did with that fastball right down the middle that he should have hit out of the park, that any other Democratic candidate would have hit out of the park, because it's kind of amazing.
51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, and getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people.
So look, Trump's a funny guy. Trump has entertaining rallies. We all understand that. But we also get that he's not the most articulate individual. So he's rambling here. He's talking about states' rights, and then he's kind of saying this state did this state did that, rather than just say, yeah, I wanted this to be a states' rights issue. According to the 10th Amendment, powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved for the states. So as president, I'm going to leave it at that. But then he follows this up by saying, look, I know a lot of people feel this way, but we got to win. We got to win elections. And this is just not impressive in any way in terms of a candidate.
Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
Now, look, we have to be 100% real. Abortion is a losing political issue for the Republican Party, and this is, in fact, true. You should take a position that better suits yourself to win an election, because in reality, we're looking at a next president that is likely going to appoint the replacements for Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito. So very easily, if people get mad on the pro-life side at the Republican Party for not going hard enough during election season on the pro-life issue, you could end up with Roe v. Wade being perfectly reinstated with these 2 replacements that will be appointed by the Biden administration. So technically, Trump is being honest, but he's being a little bit too honest right here. And a savvy political candidate, a opposition candidate like Joe Biden, should be able to call him out on this, should be able to say, you're not taking a position, you're being quite cowardly, you're just saying what you need to say in order to get elected, and you're not even smart enough to hide the ball from the American people. You're just making it public and outright that you're taking a pragmatic, strategic position rather than something that you actually believe. But guess what? Biden doesn't do that. Biden does something so insane, so crazy, so unheard of in terms of politics that I can't even believe it's real. You know, they were talking about cheat fakes and deep fakes for Joe Biden. Well, there's no need to ever do that. There's no need to ever cut up video to make it look like he pooped his pants or any of that crazy stuff that people have been doing on the internet.com, because Joe Biden, unfiltered, allowed to answer questions while Trump is muted, does enough damage to himself on his own. This answer is just insane. This is the highlight of the debate for the Trump campaign. It is the low light of Joe Biden's entire political career in terms of strategy. And again, this is a guy who has lost a bunch of primary elections and had a bunch of political fumbles throughout his entire career before he completely lost his mind.
The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that She was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
I want you to just think about what Joe Biden did right there. I want you to think about every political candidate you've ever seen in your entire life that was asked a difficult question and then ultimately ended up pivoting to a question that was completely unrelated that they actually wanted to answer, and then realized that Joe Biden had a perfect question served up for him on a silver platter, and he decided to pivot to one of his worst issues. He decided to take a win, a slam dunk on abortion, where Trump didn't even give that good of an answer, and instead say, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about illegal immigrants that I let into this country that murder American citizens, that murder women, and how you went to the funeral of that person, you met with the family, and I didn't. And then I'm going to say, well, to work it back to abortion, in-laws are assaulting women, and they need abortions because of that. Look, I knew Joe Biden had lost it. I knew Joe Biden was not the man that he used to be. But this is horrible. This is any thought gets into his head in the moment and he's going to vomit it up, even if it's politically damaging for him. Again, I have consistently said that Joe Biden will not be replaced because Joe Biden refuses to be replaced. And even if they did replace Joe Biden at the convention, that would be a disaster for the Democratic Party because they didn't let a primary operate. They essentially booted RFK Jr., who again, I don't think is a serious candidate, but he was a lifelong Democrat. A Kennedy, by the way, out of the primary, made him run independent, and then they're just going to swap Joe Biden at the convention and people are going to be okay with that. On top of that, everybody thinks that Gavin Newsom is going to be the replacement candidate for Joe Biden, but there's a huge problem with that. Kamala Harris is on the VP ticket. You cannot have a president and a vice president that have the same state as their home state while they're in office. So for Gavin Newsom to be able to replace Joe Biden on the ticket, you would also have to replace Kamala Harris. And while you could say we're trying to get rid of Joe because he has health or whatever issue they may make up late in August, the fact of the matter is the subversion of Kamala Harris, who they promoted as the first black female vice president in American history, will not go unnoticed. So it's an absolute disaster for them in every possible way if they decide to go that route. And by the way, Gavin Newsom is likely to not even want to take that position because, as we discussed in a previous video, he is setting himself up for a presidential run in 2028, and he believes that he is the favorite to win that nomination. So why, if you're Gavin Newsom, would you give up your entire political career right here in this moment to do a long shot swap that people are going to feel absolutely awful about in the 11th hour to lose to Trump and then never be able to be president ever in the future when your whole life is you've been angling to get to the Oval Office? Obviously, that is not a good plan. And by the way, any other good candidate, any other person that could take the role is going to feel the same, but it's especially true for Gavin Newsom because of the Kamala situation and because, of course, he is insanely selfish about his own political future. Also, and this is breaking, after I shot this video and while I was editing it, Biden posted this video from a rally at Raleigh, North Carolina, where he essentially said he's not leaving despite his poor performance and his age.
Let me close with this. I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know. Well, I don't. Folks, I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
So expect all the people in the media that were saying Biden, it's over for him, to start falling in line because he's not going anywhere. Now, by the way, there were other clips where Biden just kind of trailed off at the end and Trump said, I don't understand what he's saying, and I don't even believe it. He understood what he was saying.
You're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
And again, even with the moderators helping him, cutting him off when he started to ramble and going to Trump, trying to hide from the American people what bad shape this guy is in, he still looked awful in every way. But there was one clip, besides the strategic foul that I talked about earlier, where he pivoted to illegal immigration, a losing issue for him and his campaign, from abortion, a winning issue for him and his campaign, and that was when they started going back and forth on golf. And CNN, I gotta give them credit for leaving both mics open, because this back and forth again didn't make Joe Biden look good. The craziest thing in American politics happened in this particular moment, where they started arguing about their golf handicap, and then Trump capped it off with something I'll remind you of in a little bit later.
That I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
So first of all, who cares? Who cares if these guys are good at golf, bad at golf, whatever? I understand that Trump brought it up, but it is funny that Joe Biden said that he was golfing as VP with a 6 handicap, and then later on in the back and forth, he forgot his handicap number and then started saying that he was golfing at an 8 handicap. But the way that this exchange concluded was amazing. I never thought I would see the day where Trump appealed to the high ground of all things.
But you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn.
Let's not act like children.
Look, I understand a lot of people in my audience like President Trump. I get it. There's a lot of things that I like about the guy too. But one of the things that people tend to like about him is that he always punches back. He always tries to get the last word in, and he never, and I mean almost never, appeals to the high ground. And the only reason I'm saying almost never is because in this moment, he decided to appeal to the high ground. He said, Joe, let's not behave like children here. Absolutely crazy in every way that we saw Trump say, listen, we're getting distracted from the issues. Let's get serious, Joe Biden. Because remember, this is the guy who mentioned his you-know-what or implied something about his you-know-what against Marco Rubio in a previous debate. This is the guy that was mocking Jeb Bush throughout the whole course of the 2015 primaries. But in this particular instance, Trump was disciplined. In this particular instance, he was in control. The fact that he said that, it's just over for Biden. The guy's whole entire appeal is that he's the reasonable return to normalcy candidate. He's the normal one, and Trump is the radical. He's the reasonable one, and Trump is the crazy. And here we have, in this moment right here, him saying, shut up about your golf for a second. We need to talk about the real issues. Let's get down to brass tacks, sir. We need to discuss policy. Biden, I don't know how you could have fumbled this badly. Again, I knew it would be bad. I had anticipation that there would be horrible moments. I thought maybe we would get a Mitch McConnell freeze throughout the course of this debate, and maybe we would have had one if not for CNN cutting off the mics and pivoting back and forth and all of that, but I didn't think it would be this bad. I didn't think that Trump, of all people, would come off as the more mature candidate, during this debate. And let's be perfectly honest, whether you love the guy or you hate the guy, that is what happened right there. And yes, it is in fact surprising. Now look, the Democratic media has been an absolute meltdown ever since the debate started, really, but all of the post-debate coverage was absolutely disastrous. Now I'm certain that later on today, if not tomorrow, these people will fall in line. They'll be talking about how Joe Biden is actually the most competent president in the history of this country and all that, but their initial reactions are real reactions. They are raw reactions, and I can see a lot of people in the Democratic Party seeking out a replacement candidate. But the thing is, Joe Biden ain't gonna play ball with that. He wants to be president. He is obsessed with his own legacy. He has a huge ego. This idea that he's this humble man, just a public servant, is not the case. There's a reason he ran for president so many times, and there's a reason he decided that he was going to continue on this path earlier this year when people were trying to get him out originally. This is just how it goes. The man wants to be president. This is how these politicians are. The idea of them stepping down is absolutely crazy. And again, because he picked Kamala Harris because of the Black Lives Matter riots, which is amazing, George Floyd sowing the seeds for Joe Biden's destruction in 2024, he's really stuck because the guy that they want to replace him with cannot be on the ticket with his VP, so they would have to subvert the black woman in order to get him there. So it's absolutely amazing to see this unfold. It is amazing to see the media completely freak out, but remember, it's not over yet. Remember, they still have one more debate for Joe Biden to be hopped up on stimulants and sound semi-coherent, and that one is closer to the election. And we also have the Republican convention bump and then the Democratic convention bump to follow that, and we'll see where we are come November. By the way, another thing about Gavin Newsom that would be a disaster is the fact that in the Midwest, they build cars there, and Gavin Newsom banned non-electric vehicles, and if you've been following what's going on with the UAW, one of the biggest things that they were on strike about is the fact that electric vehicles actually take less personnel to build. So yeah, it's not looking good even if they go in that direction, even if they somehow finagle it and replace Biden with Gavin Newsom, because you have all of these different other factors, and again, it just looks shady. And again, Gavin Newsom's ego will not allow him to throw away his career on a long shot presidential campaign when he thinks he has 2028 in the bag. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of Joe Biden's performance? Did he absolutely kill it? And by kill it, I mean his campaign. Or did he somehow restore your faith in the American system? If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute disaster that was Joe Biden's debate performance. Till next time.